Welcome, Jess.
Thank you, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and exhibiting here at Kindred Textiles.
Thank you, it's very exciting. It's my first exhibition here and my third solo exhibition ever, so it's very, very exciting.
You've been flat out, haven't you?
Yeah.
Creating for this show.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about Kindred of the Dust.
Kindred of the Dust is a body of work that is sort of about home and how I've located myself in different spaces I call home. I sort of consider myself a contemporary nomad. I seem to travel a lot and move around a lot, but I always seem to make my home there, and it's very reflective in my work for this particular exhibition. I've actually sort of not just used aesthetic symbols of home, but I've used physical materiality aspects to represent home to me. I've used ochres that I've collected from my spaces to make dye. I've embedded native seeds that are local to my area within the felt, and it's all very reflective of that. And it's a very personal show, and it's very special, and I'm glad I can share it.
And what is it about felt?
It's a good question. Felt. I am obsessed. I grew up with a sort of a traditional knowledge of art. I grew up drawing and painting, and have been since I was a small child. When I went to university, I was exposed to textiles, and I love the tactility of it, in turning something that was once two-dimensional into a three-dimensional shape. And I discovered felt a few years ago when I did a project about the provenance of materials and provenance of traditional skills and handmade skills, especially of rural women. I'm really passionate about rural arts and regional arts, and so I went into the small community where my parents are from and where they live, and asked them to teach me about the whole process from farm to studio to the wool. So they taught me how to process their wool that they'd grown themselves. They taught me how to spin, weave, and felt, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the way that you can use a fibre and use its actual properties to help you create an artwork. It speaks for itself. It sort of does the manipulating more than you can do the manipulating. I think it's really special. And there's an interesting community of textile artists as well, and everyone is really shares, and I was so taken aback by that and so amazed by that, and I want to pass that on as well, and I just fell in love. Yeah.
So felt works very well for you in this exhibition in terms of the 3D sculptures that you've made,
yeah,
such as the belts behind you, and using the particular wools that you've used. Do you want to talk a little bit about the belts?
Yeah, so I grew up in the country. I grew up in the Riverina in southwestern New South Wales, and I was always surrounded by farmland, and both my parents' families are from generations of sheep farmers, and so you have that knowledge transferred to you just by osmosis. I knew about wool, and I knew about farming and where it came from, and once I learnt a few of the skills, I started to learn more about the agricultural side as well, and how different fibres and different types of wool react differently to the process. So I've used a lot of Corriedale wool. A lot of it is undyed. The only pieces that have been dyed are some of the really dark wool has been dyed, but apart from that, it's all the natural colours of the wool. And I often use my own wool that I've been given, or that's come from my family's sheep, but a lot of it's really rough and sort of the dregs that no one wants anymore, and I try to give it new life. I use a bit of merino too.
Seems to me, Jess, that you really capture the Australianness, the bush that we all live in, and if you've come from a farm like you and I both have, you've just nailed it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about these dry water beds behind you?
So on my parents' farm, they are down towards the snow valleys, and throughout the property they've got beautiful billabongs and waterways and a river that runs through it. And I often like to imagine sort of what I'm going to create, looking above and looking down. I sort of like the topography of the earth, but I also like to zoom in on little intricacies as well. And these ones particularly are sort of when a creek or a dam or a billabong dries up through the dry season, it leaves sort of layers of silt, and that's what this one was inspired by, just coming out of summer and into the hopefully wet season. This is sort of what that represents, and it's got a lot of gesture as well. It's very gestural and it's got a lot of movement, and I feel like there's a lot of life that surrounds billabongs, but these are the big dry, so not so much life. Yeah.
And are there other things that you use to inspire your work, to keep you focused and to keep you going, given that this show is quite a large amount of work and it only took you 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Is there something that you did to keep you focused?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I've recently moved back to the country after living living overseas and living in Sydney. Moving back to the country, which I feel so at home there, and I feel so inspired, and it was just such a natural transition into doing art more regularly. And I've got a studio out in the middle of a farm. There's nothing there except sheep and gum trees, and when I go out there, it's just so inspiring, and it makes me want to make. And I sort of, for example, the birds even are so inspired by the trees. I just look outside and I have an idea, but I also, you have to have strength in your concepts, but you also need to allow yourself to be inspired in the moment, and I think that's really important. And
Jess, what would you think life might look like for you in the near future, say 1 to 5 years?
Well, I said to myself, I'll give myself 6 months, and it's pretty much 6 months, and see how I go in developing my skill and my connections to my own art, and that was really important. And I think I'm just going to keep going.
Will you stay with felt, or will you move into other mediums?
Well, it's really interesting. I want to learn more. I want to continue to grow and learn of others and share those skills as well and teach. And I don't know. I love felt, and I feel like I can push it further as well. I think that it has that ability to be pushed to the next level, and I'd love to keep going with it and see what I can get out of it.
And if you were to talk to a young student just starting out, what would you suggest to them?
So I see a lot of young people. I used to teach high school, teach workshops, and I love seeing young people connect with something that they've never tried before. I feel like you've just got to keep trying things until you find something that speaks to you. And as a young artist, I feel like I didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me at the time, or in the past. I think it's just saying yes to everything and just persevering, but find something that really makes you tick. And just go for it. You've got nothing to lose.
So Jess, this one's particularly beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So this is Starlit Tights, and basically it's pretty self-explanatory, the name, but I really want to start pushing the sculptural abilities of wool and of felt, and this one has many layers in it. It's all wet felting and resists layers and layers and layers of resist, so it's probably 5 kilograms before doing that. But it's about pushing it each time I create something. I think I sort of learn from my past mistakes or my past artworks, and just I do something different each time almost. It's such a learning by doing and a learning by feeling, and that's why I love it.
That's beautiful. You'll have to look after these hands.
I know, I'm having a break, so yeah, the break, so definitely.
Well, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
It's a treat to have you here. I'm honoured to have your work.
And I just
congratulations.
Thank you. And I think what you do at Timeless Textiles is so commendable, and it's an incredible thing to celebrate. And I encourage any young people coming through that are interested in textiles to come and have a look and experience and try out the workshops you have here, because there's so much to offer.
Thank you.